On Tuesday, I was told my kind isn't welcome at a roundtable discussion for British Columbia's so-called inclusive Premier, David Eby. Instead of a whites-only sign at the front entrance of the event, I was surrounded by the Fed's RCMP, who stood by and watched as a media handler for the BC government told me I wasn't the right heritage to cover the event for you. South Asians only. Let's talk about it.
So I can't just set up my camera and film the roundtable?
It's for South Asian only.
Oh, okay.
I'm very sorry for that.
It's rather exclusive, but...
Yeah, it's exclusive.
Okay, because I got the invitation, so it didn't
really?
say for South Asian only.
I'm afraid it's only sent to the South Asian media outlets actually.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and on March 5th, I got my boots on the ground to try and bring you the public coverage of an important discussion BC's Premier David Eby had about the province's 2024 budget and economic priorities. The roundtable discussion with Eby at its head took place at the Grand Taj Banquet Hall in Surrey, and like any respectable journalist would do, I signed up to register to attend as media in advance via email, as this invitation says to do so. But I never got a response. You see, unlike the BC Conservatives or even more recently the BC United Party, where I actually do receive a response when I put out an inquiry on your behalf, the BC's Socialist NDP government has never responded to me a single time before. It's quite a contradiction from the Premier's claims that to him, the media is oh so indispensable.
On behalf of all of the families of the journalists, the media outlets, on behalf of all British Columbians that have watched their local news stations slowly turn to garbage by these companies who now say, unsurprisingly, that there's not a lot of support for them, I just want to say shame on you. Shame on you. And I call on the federal government to stop this assembly of media properties that are not actually properties to the local communities they serve. They are an indispensable source of information.
Silly me. That righteous anger you just saw from Premier Eby is probably only reserved for state choice journalists, the ones who are now finding themselves getting fired by the same soulless masters who operated the outlets they work for by providing public awareness that only extends as far as political correctness would allow it to. A righteous anger reserved for the eroding of the types of reporters who have failed to ask Eby during any of his press conferences regarding the budget about how the NDP can justify explaining in their budget that $2 billion is needed for the healthcare system, in part because it is desperate for more healthcare workers, like doctors and nurses, when at least some of those tax dollars, and more importantly, many British Columbians' lives could be more easily saved if the government would simply just allow the vaccine-free healthcare workers to be back to work. After all, the province is the only jurisdiction in the country and practically the whole world who's still implementing such a discriminatory vaccine mandate. Now, that's what I would have asked about if I was permitted to. But this time it wasn't just tough questions working against me. No, apparently it was my ethnicity as well, at least according to the media handler at David Eby's event. Take a look.
Hi. Give me your credentials.
Yeah. Hi.
You're with which
Rebel
media?
News.
It's just the South Asian roundtable
Oh,
for South
okay.
Asian media.
So can't cover it?
Yeah, no other media actually. Just the South Asian media, no English media, no mainstream media. I'm very sorry for that.
Okay, so I can't just set up my camera and film the roundtable?
It's for South Asian only.
Okay.
I'm very sorry for
It's
that.
rather exclusive, but...
Yeah, it's exclusive.
Okay, because I got the invitation, so it didn't
really?
say for South Asian only.
I'm afraid it's only sent to the South Asian media outlets actually from the BC government. So maybe you get it from somewhere else. But that's specific because Premier is pretty much every day out there talking about the post-budget, echo announcements.
Yes, I've been
So
following.
it's just selected for the South Asian media community.
Okay.
So only the South Asian media people will be here.
Okay.
And it will be in Punjabi language. You won't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thanks a lot. I'm very sorry for that.
I wasn't aware that David Eby spoke Punjabi, were you? I also wasn't aware of when Punjabi became Canada's national language or when it became impossible for a news outlet to provide translated subtitles for the public to follow along on an important report. Premier Eby's discriminatory, exclusive South Asian only discussion contradicts his party's mission to support a truly inclusive British Columbia and his party's claim to believe that BC is stronger when everyone is truly free to be who they are. Perhaps if I had identified as South Asian instead, I would have gotten in, like the males who so proudly stand on their human right to intimidate women and girls in same-sex spaces like change rooms or female sports. After all, those feel-good inclusion quotes I just read from the NDP site were, of course, aimed at those who identify as being LGBTQ+. Which brings me to the next layer of hypocrisy over Eby's event. Would you believe that one of the RCMP officers who showed up to guard the Premier's discriminatory event came in a Surrey RCMP's diversity unit squad car? It can't possibly get any more ironically racist than that.
Diversity unit, what a concept. Who would have thunk the GBGT would get involved in Pride? Such big supporters of Pride. Unbelievable. Pardon my foul language. Diversity unit.
Yeah, diversity.
Every police force needs a diversity unit.
Diversity.
I asked the driver where his Pride flag is. He didn't have an answer for me.
If you're wondering whose voices those were, it was a couple of the pop-up protesters who showed up to oppose Premier Eby's presence, as well as Minister of Education Rashna Singh. They were demanding for both of them to resign over the explicit sexual orientation, gender identity, SOGI inclusive resources in schools like the ones you're seeing on the screen. Here's a snippet of what Freedom Party of BC leader Amrit Bring said during that protest.
If the whole society is corrupted, their children will be impacted too. Their families will be impacted too. No one is immune. So this is the time to make a stand. Defy your superior, do the right thing. Arrest Rachna Singh, Education Minister, under Section 171.1 to expose a child to sexually explicit material. It's very clearly said. It's very clearly written in the law. And we have books in school libraries which we have handed over to RCMP.
Now, of course, I reached out to the BC NDP to see exactly how having such an exclusive event aligns with their government's commitment to inclusivity. But again, I have not heard back. But why don't you do me the honors? Tell me in the comments what you think about the leader of a Canadian province shutting down English-speaking constituents from discussions that matter to them. Drea Humphrey for Rebel News. At Rebel News, we work hard to bring you the other side of the story, even if we have to be racially discriminated against to do so. If you appreciate our boots on the ground reports like the ones you just watched, please consider chipping in to help us cover the many costs involved to bring them to you. We have a special website called rebelfieldreports.com where everything you chip in there goes to In the Field reports. And boy, do we appreciate your support. Again, that's rebelfieldreports.com.